Yes, please. Father God, we thank you, Lord, for the many blessings that you give us each and every day, Lord. We thank you also for trials and tribulations that we sometimes go through, Lord, just because it helps us understand your part in our lives and demonstrate our faith to you and to others, Lord. We ask that you be with us, so we might make good decisions on behalf of the people of our county, of our community, and of our state, Lord. And we just ask that you bless everyone in this room, keep everybody open-minded, keep everybody receptive to the opinions of others, Lord. We thank you for this and all the blessings you give us this day. In your name we pray, Lord. Amen.
All right, before we do the approval of the agenda, I just want to make sure we put, Pastor Ed that wanted to spend just a couple of minutes on, so I wanted to kind of add that maybe in there as an item, we can put it in under consent agenda, I guess. If nobody objects to that, we need a motion to approve the agenda. So, we got a first, second, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 2 is the consent agenda. I did have a question on item D for Kevin. The ARP funds for water, what, is that specific to something, or I think it's $400,000?
Yes, those are, that is a grant that we've received, that it is using state ARP funds. This is the study grant for the wastewater treatment plant at the Wagram facility out at Cascades.
400,000.
Yes.
That's a study there. I saw it on there, and I didn't know if it was for water expansion or what it was.
No, this is the grant that we've applied for to study, putting in a package plant at the Wagram facility that would allow us, a 2 million gallon wastewater treatment, package plant that would allow us to take the flows from, the town of Wagram, also absorb some of the flow from, Farnburg Maxton, and then ultimately allow that LMA the capacity to take the flow from Maxton, so Maxton could flow to the wastewater.
All right, we have a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion second. Any other discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carried. So, Pastor Ed, this will be your time.
I'll just take a few minutes of your time. Pardon me, I'm an old retired pastor and retired school teacher, so I have to have little visuals. I'm kidding out here. Jesus made a statement that that impacted my life, I guess, forever. He said, where I am, my servant will be also. And I thought, well, what is that supposed to mean? I don't get that. So one day, Mr. Alford, I was driving down West Boulevard, minding my business, coming home. There was a little, in the middle of the road, moving about this long. It was a little kitten in the head. He was raising up its head. Somebody to help him. As it's white, it was black. And I left and I said, Lord, why in the world do you show me this stuff? I'm a mush inside anyway. And he said, turn around and go back. Went back and pulled over. Little kitten couldn't get up. He was getting pretty bad. I picked him up. And he looked up and cried. I said, honey, it's going to be all right. Petted it, laid it in the grass and covered it until it died and buried it. So why did you show me that? I didn't need that. You ruined my day. He said, Mike, I showed you that because of the scripture. He said, I'm out there where people are hurting. They get run over in this life and no one stops, even church folks, even pastors. The government, schools, they just drive on by and look at them suffer. He said, I've called you to do better than that. I'm out there where they are. And so I got to looking at that. He's not behind the four walls. He's where people are hurting, forgotten, hopeless, and seemingly don't care about them. He's asked us to join in to do something about it. And he's given us the ability to do it. I had to go back and pick that kitten up. I had to bury it. I had to make it last hours with someone that loved it. Wasn't me, it was him. And I got to think about, when he was on earth, what did he do? He was there when a woman was gonna be stoned to death by the religious crowd because she caught in adultery. He said, those without sin cast the first stone. They dropped their stones left. He was the only one without sin. He made a decision. He said, I'm not here to condemn you, just quit your sinning. He was at a funeral procession where a widow lady lost her only son. He stopped and raised him from the dead. He was with a crippled man by the pool of Siloam. When the waters were troubled, the first one got in was healed. He couldn't get in. He healed him. He was out in the middle of the cemetery where a man was stark naked, full of demons. No one cared. It counted, driven him off, and he set him free. And another one finally was at a well of Samaria. The Jews didn't go there. They were the offcast of the earth. The woman went out in the hot of the day because she'd been married 4 times and shacked up with a guy. But he cared about her and changed her life. Hasn't changed. We're his hands on earth. For 10 years, the Lord has drawn me to Washington Park. The kids there, I gotta do something. It's a high crime area, it's low income, single parents. There's no place for these kids to safely play. Scotland County kids have the highest extreme child hunger rate in the state. We have the highest child abuse rate. Reading is only 38% proficiency, math is 42%. 30% of our kids drop out of school because they can't read and write. And there's so few opportunities for these kids, and the gangs are recruiting them. When I worked with Duke, traveling with those officers, they showed me where all the gangs were. I think it was 5 at that time, recruiting these kids. So I couldn't get away from it. We started Kids Night Out, bust them in, 120 of them from there and other places. Duke sent us some officers, sheriff sent us some deputies. They played with them. Duke gave me a bunch of iPads to give out to them. And we fed these kids. One little boy, the peanut butter jelly sandwich. He said, that's the best I've had to eat all day. They're hungry. We loved on them, taught them about Jesus, played with them. And they loved it. And I saw lives change. We started summer lunch this summer over at Washington Park at the Housing Authority Annex. 5 teachers and community parents have come in. Businesses have helped us with food. But it's been my passion. I got to do something for these kids. They have nothing. And I've been in homes where one mama, her son had been murdered out in the front yard, and I've seen kids in messes. And what are the opportunities? We have an opportunity. Ms. Rayner and I are here representing the Housing Authority Board. We met last week and voted to allow the annex to be used by the sheriff, what we previously did, the sheriff and the police department. We also approved the summer lunch and activities with the retired school teachers. And last week, we voted to allow the playground to be refurbished and used in partnership with D. Rayner's nonprofit, the retired teachers, Crosspoint Church, and others. And we worked out a plan for the supervision, security, and upkeep to be secured. The Housing Authority, I used to be executive director with HUD in West Virginia. They're limited by the funds that they can use to build that, but they've given us the go-ahead to use it for free and build it. I'm providing free grant writing services. That's not cheap. A professional seasoned grant writer charges $200 to $250 an hour, and it takes 30 to 50 hours to write one proposal, whether it's funded or not. I mean, that's thousands of dollars. And the Lord's blessed me over the years, I guess in 78 to get in maybe 15, 20 million. The last 2 years we got in the Falcon Children's Zone, 600,000. And so it's doable. I'm offering that for free. In my past, we built 3 playgrounds. When I was with HUD, 2 on public housing property, 1 in a community. It was with grants and county commission funding. I guess we're appealing for your partnership today. This will greatly enhance the proposal. When I sent these proposals out, they look to see who we're partnering with, and that greatly enhances its funding. I've got a database, it'll search 300,000 foundations, 17 million grants, and use it for free to locate these foundations. I know there's been some concerns about giving to a nonprofit, but if I'm not mistaken, Partners in Ministry, you help them, you help Scotland Youth. But I was talking with Dee Rayner, if the issue is giving to her nonprofit, give it to the Housing Authority, give it to Parks and Rec. We're open to whoever you want to be the fiscal agent. There was concern, well, it's fenced in, how can it be public? Well, I drove by Dragon Park, they have some fenced in areas there. There's a playground there, a picnic shelter, there's a big backfield, and their fence is as tall as ours. We're in a high crime area. We want it there to protect what we're doing and to protect those kids and to provide for security. I heard comment that, well, why doesn't the Housing Authority meet with us? We are here. We make up half the board. We're representing them with what we voted to do. Another comment was made to me that the little park in Washington Park near 74, why not use it? First of all, it's too far for these kids to walk. That's almost 3/4 of a mile. Unsupervised up that highway. There's no safety there. What we're providing is accessibility, security, and supervision. Another comment was made to me, well, we got other areas like McIntosh and you know, Washington Park has the largest population of our housing projects. But we have an opportunity that's been given to us in partnerships to make it happen. And that's unprecedented. It can open doors for these other ones. I'll provide grant writing services for all of them if we get community groups that will be willing to work with us. I know we'd ask you for 200,000. You don't have to give all that. It could be 10,000, 50,000, but some thing that you can give us that I can show these foundations we have local community support. I'm not casting any spurs, but we'd asked city council years ago, and they said they weren't in the recreation business. I thought, my God, somebody's got to help these babies. These kids have been run over like this little kitten. Who is going to help us? And I got to thinking, well, where is Jesus? He's there in Washington Park. He's with these little kids. His arms around those 2 little girls that their daddy was murdered this summer. The 3 little girls that laid on the floor with their grandma, whose gunfire was going off. I've been there. I've been there when there's been shootouts. When I was chaplain, I went over there with a group. The fastest I've ever gone in my life, the G-forces, it hit me, rushing over there, it was almost a ride. They feel forgotten. And the only time they give them attention is when something goes bad. But anyway, wrapping this up, God wants us to give them the opportunity to be happy, playing, loving kids, loved kids. And he wants them to have an alternative to gang culture. And he's asked us to join them. We can look at ways, you know, we had a big discussion. We've got a great attorney like you do here about the legalities of it, and back and forth and back and forth. And we made a decision, instead of looking for ways that we can't do it, let's look at ways that we can do it. And so to make it happen, and I just telling you, it's unprecedented, the things that come together. God has orchestrated an opportunity. We're asking for your help to contribute to this. And I close with this other little story. This old preacher, like me, was coming to church one day, and the little boy had some 3 little birds, 3 little field birds, and he was just shaking them around and throwing them up in the air, and they were terrified. He said, little boy, what you gonna do with them? I'm gonna have me some fun, preacher. Well, after you have fun, what are you gonna do with them? The little things were terrified. So I'm gonna feed them to my cat. He said, son, how much do you want for those birds? The little boy took one of them out. He said, they ain't worth nothing. They ain't worth nothing. They're field birds. They can't even sing. Why do you want them? How much do you want for them? And the little boy said, $2. And he gave him $2. Old preacher took them out, let them fly away. Reminds me of a story. Jesus came along one day in the Garden of Eden, and old Lucifer said, "Hey, Jesus, I got me a mess of people." He said, "I have fooled them. I got me a mess of. What are you gonna do with it? I'm gonna torment them. I'm gonna make them kill one another, rob one another, rape one another, hate one another because of the color of their skin. I'm gonna have me some fun." And what are you gonna do with it when you're finished with the fun? He said, "I'm gonna damn them to hell." Jesus said, "How much do you want for them? You're crazy. They'll kill you. They'll spit in your face. They'll put a crown of thorns on your head. They'll put nails in your hands and feet. They'll put a sword in your side. They'll beat your back. You don't want them. They don't want you. How much?" He said, "All your blood and all your breath." And Jesus said, "So." He hasn't quit. Well, an old man like me care about Washington Park. I'm an old white guy. Even though I found out that my fifth great grandfather was an African slave, I just got a pale way of showing it, I reckon. But I can't quit. He's there. He says, "Mike, I see it every day. Do something." So please consider this. If it's just $10, I don't care. But partner with us, and we'll get it done. And if there's any legalities we got to get around, let's find a way to do it. So that's my heart. I'm gonna shut up. You got your sermon for the day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. God bless you.
Any questions, anything?
First, I want to thank you for the presentation. And he's right, just to validate some of the things he wrote with us. He was a chaplain at the police department. He get a close view of that area and the makeup of that area, whether it be kids playing, adults. He's been involved over there, and I think he is passionate about Washington Park. He's not pretending. Unfortunately, everybody's not like that, but thank God that you are. And we, I personally, I can speak for me, and I'm pretty sure the rest of the guys on the board, we take what you're saying very serious. We take the kids of Scotland County very serious, and that area also. I appreciate you coming before us. Hopefully things will work out.
Thank you, Judy. Can we go ahead and deal with this? I mean, whether we're able or not, I mean,
This is your meeting.
I want to start with Mr. Johnson. Where are we at legally with our ability to use ARP funding to support this and 'tis the season? Because they've been waiting for a while. So, I mean, let's just go to do with it.
Well, I think this is season is pretty easy. I haven't done any research on this particular component, but if the board wants me to do that, I will.
Are they similar as far as?
It's a nonprofit,
Yeah, that's my concern. If they're similar,
but it is a season project, is one that, first of all, you got an issue about separation, of church and state. Secondly, that funding could go through the TDA without probably any questions. So if the board wanted to do something with them, that might be the easy answer for that. But I haven't done any research on this particular one. I'm doing this thing, it's a nonprofit, but if the board wants me to do that, I will.
Could you do some research and bring us something back at our April 1st meeting so we can make a
I'll work
decision?
with Kevin on it because he's very familiar with what the restrictions on the ARPA money would be.
Please.
And
I don't think the restriction is just strictly art money. I mean, just county money is restricted,
Well, there are state restrictions too.
Right, yeah, that you have to show, if you give money, that it has to show a direct benefit to the whole county. So,
And there's no church and state involved. This is just solely a nonprofit.
No, he was referring to something different.
Oh, he was talking about the TIS.
Yeah, so could you do the research on both of those projects and bring us back what information we need so that we can make a educated decision
I
to
will.
support those as best we can? I think we all want to support both.
we
if we really do.
we want both of them together. We're gonna deal with them together. I don't know.
I don't think my opinion on this season will change, but I think we'll have to review it again.
So we'll add it to our April 1st agenda so we can make a decision as to how we can best support. It may not be in one way, we may be able to do it in a different way for both activities.
I think the two requests are different.
I agree.
And so I think just because we do one doesn't mean we will do both.
I agree.
That's.
I got you, but I also hear what you're saying. If one, for the verbiage, nonprofit or profit, whatever, we need to help guide them and navigate them, but we can assist them. You know, I'd like to do that, because I'm gonna be honest with you, this is personal. I can say that. This is personal. We're talking about kids. I am on the Parks and Rec board. You know, it is personal. So I think we do everything we can to try to help them. And if we can't,
Parks and Rec may need to be involved on this one as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Brian's a good man.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody?
Thank you
All right, thanks, Pastor. Appreciate it. You were not offended if you don't want to stay to the rest.
That's all right. I'll do that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Did you have anything you wanted to say?
Thank you, ma'am. All right, on to the next item, our 2023-24 budget discussion. We'll turn that over to Kevin.
Okay. A little bit bigger. I've started, last week went through, had meetings with most of the departments. I've not met with, health or DSS yet, because it takes more time. They need more details from the state. So I will not be going over theirs. But what I just want to do is hit just a few of the big changes that the departments are looking for, because most of their budgets, they already know the objective is to keep that budget as close to flat as possible. So what I'm just hitting are just some of the big changes, so I'll go through fairly quickly. We'll go through more detail. And again, these are some of the primary requests from the departments. I don't know what, if any of them will make it into my recommendations. But starting with Parks and Recreations, really looking for, of course, the opening of I.E. Johnson, the gym, which would increase 2 positions there. That would be phase 1, so we're looking early summer for that to be, for the gym to be complete. For capital, they're also looking for crack and seal into tennis courts. Also actually replacing the parking lot at Market Park. Beth is going to be working with Brian and Mike McGirt to see if we can put this parking lot and get it repaired in the current year, depending on how the budgets look like they're going to finish out the year.
Is that a paved lot or a rock?
That's right now it's a rock lot, but it's technically paved. It's just very bad.
Right.
But this would take it back into a new paved lot. Also looking at, installing a camera system just for security at the Wagram Recreation Center. There's already plans for one to be installed in, Laurel Hill. We have the agreement with Spectrum to provide that. But it took Spectrum 9 months to get the cameras installed in DSS. So we're still just waiting. Apparently cameras are hard to get. Parks and Recreation is also looking at reviewing its fee structure.
Fees for.
Participation in sports and other events.
Yeah, that's great to have a fee for that, but I also don't want anybody not being able to play because they can't.
Right.
Yeah, that's more driven towards facilities.
Okay.
You know, our athletic team, we don't anticipate any
I
increase
got
in that because, you
That
know,
was
it's
what I
all
was saying.
fluctuation.
And especially with the addition of Laurel Hill and IAJ, what are the fees gonna be for
rental
the roads and things like that?
Okay, I get that.
Before you leave Parks and Rec, I have 2 questions that were posed to me, or 2 things. At Laurel Hill, Some of the citizens have shared that there was supposed to be workout equipment there, somewhat like Wagram has. Was that a part of the plan, or is that a part of the plan for Laurel Hill?
Not in my knowledge.
You never knew it was.
That was a discussion item. But with that, the conversation wound up being, well, let's get the facility in and get it started and then start using it and see exactly what use and what people start requesting.
Well, that is a request, Blaine, if you'll look at how we can fit that into the plan moving forward. The second concern is the words on the outside of the building, Laurel Hill Community Center. Is there a way that we can have those lit up? Because at night, you can't see the name of the building or even the sign out front. Some lighting out there. Okay, concern for citizens.
We can look into that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like this board to consider, there's a lot of folk coming to us asking for money for recreation. As the Reverend just said, sitting there, he told us the percent of kids that are not graduating, or who can't read, right? All these folks that are asking for money for recreation, I think we ought to tie in, if we're gonna fund you, we want you to address more than physical education. We built a gym, Laurel Hill, Blue Gym here, IJ and other folk are coming asking for money, and we're just consumed about this recreation thing, and rightfully so. But let's tie into that an educational component. That's our big issue, one of our biggest issues. Scotland County is uneducated, and as a result, you get all the things that go along with that, the crime, the birth rate, it's, high among kids, mortality rate is high. When we're talking about gym, and that, it really fascinates me, we're not addressing the real issues. So let's tie it in. We can't do it now, but let's think about that. You gotta provide, you want them at this facility, okay? You're gonna have to provide some tutoring, etc. And then I wanna partner with you, but if all we're gonna do is play, then I'm hesitant. But if you add something else, I'm with us, we're in this together. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. Can I echo that a little bit, sir? The components of tutoring and things of that nature.
I don't hear real well, could you move
You
your
talk about tutoring, and then the way we can partner with the school system, hopefully on that piece.
Well,
When you, wait a minute, let me get my thoughts out. I'll let you.
I got you.
When you're talking about tutoring and computer lab and things of that nature, they may be doing that, maybe planning that Watson Park, but it's gonna take steps to get there. Normally, dealing with Pastor Ed, he always had a piece as far as doing some tutoring, some reading and writing and things of that nature. They also gonna have to include the parents in that. You got to include the parents. When we talk about a literacy rate, teen pregnancy, all those things have a common denominator. If you follow them home, you're not just teaching that child, you got to teach that parent. Some of them don't know how to be parents. I'm just thankful that at least we're looking at the physical part of it. As far as helping kids physically. We can build on that, but we need to get started doing something, headed in the direction, doing something to help these families. And that's my piece.
As it relates to, the education component, I, along with Dr. Catherine Probst and Dr. Fresco, I did it with their support, close the achievement gap. Later it was in the paper that somebody else did it. That somebody was me. But anyway, what I found is education in this county, we can't help them
other than give them a few bucks here and there. But they're the experts, PhDs, the masters, the doctors. So we can't help them, they can't help us. It's what they do, and they're the experts. But we certainly can, and I'm not addressing what you say to do. We can require, and we can't tell them how to do it, because we don't know how to, the educational component, but they need to do something educational. You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Thank you.
So that is,
I started,
what I propose is that we don't try to tell them how to do it, or we certainly don't know how. But people who commit it, they can make it happen. Thank you.
Next going on is with EMS. And it may seem like I'm jumping around, but basically these are just the order in which I had these meetings. EMS, the big shift there is right now they're looking at, additional means of enticing recruitment, bringing on new employees with the positions that, the board gave to add the additional ambulance, the stationed up at Wagram. They've actually been filling that with part-time people. We've actually not been able to hire full-time staff for those positions in the last year, with that. So right now, they're looking at, exploring, options of going to a split 24 and 12-hour shifts. Right now, they're on 24-hour shifts. They're looking at modifying this. I know, Robert's been talking with Nash County, that is currently going into this process. Spoke with the county manager in Henderson. And actually, they're in the reverse. They have 12-hour shifts, and they're looking to add 24-hour shifts because they can't get the recruitment that they need. So that is just one thing that they're currently looking at exploring. They're also requesting, along with the 911 center, for a position for a training officer. This is someone who will help maintain their credentials, maintain their training requirements, making sure all the staff in both EMS and the 911 center maintain the continuing education that they have to maintain their licenses, maintain their security accesses with the DCI system. A lot of that has continuing training that they have to do and have to report on. And those requirements are just getting more comprehensive. So they're requesting a training officer that would be split between the two agencies.
Is EMS, is the problem not having enough positions or not having enough people to fill the positions that you've got, or both?
Excuse me, the issue that we're discovering is not having enough people to fill the positions because of our current work schedule with the current workforce, we're not attractive, if you will, to the current workforce as far as people applying to come to work with us. We got a great working environment. We're just not currently offering what the workforce is looking for.
What are they looking for?
So we currently do a 24/48, modified 24/48 work schedule. Right now, what we're seeing is people don't want to work 24/48, okay, because of the demand of the schedule. With our increasing call volume, it's just putting a lot more stress on the current staffing and as well as people not wanting to come in to work that type of a schedule.
But when you say 24/48, just clear that. That's 24 on, 48 off.
During the week, but then on the weekend, you work 24 on, 24 off, 24 on. So, and with the increase in call volume over the last, 3 to 4, 5 years, it has just become very demanding, if you will, of a work schedule. They really are bypassing us to go to other services that offer 12-hour rotations. Or that offer which is what we're looking at, is a 24/72, which means you work a 24-hour shift and you're on 72 hours. So it gives you a more work-life balance, if you will. And it takes a lot of the stressors off of the staff because of the high demand of our job. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this. Where are you in the process?
So, I've had two meetings, as Kevin alluded to, I've had two meetings with Nash County, who currently just finished their proposal in their county with this type of a rotation. I have a meeting tomorrow with Stanley County, that has also, transitioned off of a 24-hour, 24/48 to a 24/72 with some 12-hour modifications in there as well. Right now, we're in a very competitive market when it comes to the workforce in our profession. And in order to be able to pull from that market, we've got to get competitive as well.
And most of the folks in your position now are wanting to go to the different plan.
Absolutely.
How many people do you have?
I have a total right now, full-time, of 21, with about 30 part-time employees.
Is the 21 the one that's doing the 24 on?
That is correct.
Okay.
And you said 30 part-time?
That is correct.
How many hours are you getting out of your part-time folks?
Quite a bit. More than I probably should be
40 hours?
a week.
Yeah. How do you part-time?
In some cases more.
Okay, so 40, and it's just part-time.
That is correct.
And your full-time, how many hours is on a week?
We average 56-hour work weeks.
56 hours.
We do 48 one week, 72 the second week, and 48 the third week. We work overtime every week.
And you pay extra for that overtime?
That is correct, which is the regular time,
Yeah, we
The
pay
modified
straight
half
time,
the modified halftime.
and that's allowable under federal guidelines.
Explain how that works, Kevin.
Actually, for a number of years, federal labor standards allows us for paramedics or EMS, to pay halftime overtime. So if under federal law, you work 48 hours, you get paid for 44 hours. You work 36 hours, you get paid for 40. But with that, the board changed 8 years ago. Somewhere in there, we went to basically straight time overtime. So if you work 48 hours, you get that 8 hours of overtime they built. And that's built into their normal.
Okay.
But are you paying more for that 8 hours per hour than you are? You get, it's just straight.
It's just straight time. So if you have somebody who comes in and works an extra shift, and they work an extra 24-hour shift, they get a 24-hour straight time. Right.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, there's a lot of very interesting things when you get into public safety and federal labor rules. And also with that, a lot of your public safety, recruitment is difficult everywhere. That's the glorious thing about having full employment. The people who you want to hire already have jobs. But public safety, which is, law enforcement, EMS, 911, and honestly, I'm going in, your protective services and DSS, they're in that same environment. Recruitment in those areas are just extremely competitive. And law enforcement in the last 2 years has really gotten extremely expensive to try to compete in that area. So they've been the ones driving the market. Matter of fact, I think it was last year, Asheville went off and said their 911 center was no longer going to take, for several months, we're not taking anything other than emergency calls.
That is correct.
And I think Wake County was very close to that point as well, for several months, just due to staffing.
Durham County was in a position here last year, to where they were having to call their contiguous counties every single day for mutual aid to respond to 911 calls in their county, because they didn't have the staffing to run the appropriate number of ambulances needed to handle the call volume. That's one of the largest EMS services in the state of North Carolina.
Sam, do you ever see the part where private is gonna take over?
No.
Like Braveheart, so like that, they're
No.
taking over that.
No, I don't, and the reason why I say that is for a couple of reasons. Number one, the convalescent side of things, their volumes are increasing to some degree. And with all of the mandates that are coming down through Medicare and CMS and all of that, I don't foresee that happening in the near distant future. I really don't. Our neighbors to the east, Robeson County, they lost their franchise agreement with their convalescent service. So the 911 service actually picked it up, and that was a huge mistake for them. They regret doing that now, because it's about to try to balance the two is almost impossible to do.
Right, what are we doing to improve retention and recruitment locally? Are we doing anything locally?
So we are, we did a Facebook post, for recruitment purposes. We are actually in the moment now to where a lot of the community colleges will be graduating students in May. So we're getting on the agendas for these colleges to go out and speak to those classes for recruiting purposes. But to kind of put it in perspective for the board paramedic class years ago, there were over 50 people in my class, and we graduated about that many. So imagine every community college across the state doing that. So there was, the availability was there. In Richmond Community College to this day, in their curriculum program, they have 3 students. That's about right. They have 3. So now you've got Scotland County, Richmond County, Marlboro County, Moore County. You got all these surrounding counties competing for 3 people. So that's where I say the market has just become so competitive across the state. And I'm working on a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to be putting together. We weathered this problem actually started during COVID. Okay. A lot of the services across the state were impacted out of the gate during COVID. We were very blessed and very fortunate that during COVID, we had very minimal impact to our staffing. We stayed fully staffed during the pandemic. It wasn't up until the last year or so that we started feeling the effects of what the majority, maybe not quite the majority of the state, had already been impacted with. So we've been very fortunate to weather the storm. We're just now in a position where we are now starting to get impacted. And it's not just Scotland County, it's all of our surrounding counties as well. They're feeling this as well. So this is a statewide problem. But what I can tell you is from me doing my research, very few counties across the state are doing nothing. The vast majority of counties, EMS services are having to think outside the box, and we're having to come up with these ideas on what can we do to be attractive to today's market. And that means having to change the way we currently operate.
Are we doing sponsorships?
We are. We have our, just matter of fact, last year, we started our Explore Post, getting that back. We're sponsoring the high school's EMT program. So they're doing all of their clinicals with us. So when they graduate their EMT certification, or they graduate to be eligible to take their EMT test. to get their certification. And we met with them, and we told them, if you get your EMT certification, when you graduate from high school, that we will guarantee you a part-time job with us. And then that gives it the incentive to go on to get their paramedic certification. So yes, we are trying to reach out, locally to do all we can.
So the part-time help, said you had, how many? 30 part-time people? Are they eventually gonna be full-time, or they just,
No, most of our part-time employees work full-time at other services.
okay, they work other
That
places?
is correct. And I have part-time employees that will not come to work with me full-time because of our work schedule. They don't want to work those 24, 48s. They work other services where they either do 12-hour shifts or they do something other than a 24, 48.
So what would we have to do to change the hours to make it more attractive?
So that's what I'm working with Kevin and Susan on now, to get that piece together to be able to present.
You think some of those part-time people will come to you full-time if you do that?
Yes, sir. They have reassured me if we change our current work schedule, that they would love to work for me. They tell me that all the time. I've got a female single parent that says she would love to work for me, but she needs 12-hour shifts, and Robinson County offers her that. They run 36,000 calls a year. But she's willing to do that because they offer her what she needs.
How many you grow a year, Kevin?
We ran a little over 7,200 calls last year in 2022. That is a huge jump from where we have been.
What was the year before that?
I don't have that right before me. I can get you those numbers. But about 5 years ago, when we went to adding third truck 6 years ago, we did that because we finally pressed 6,000 calls that we were currently doing with 2 ambulances. So we presented it to the board at that time, and this board approved for us to move up to 3 ambulances, 24 hours. That was about 6 years ago, right before Roland retired. And now last year in 2022, we ran over 7,200 calls. And my projection is that we will exceed that in 2023.
And you also asked about retention.
Yeah.
With that, a lot of the existing staff at EMS, the ones that leave, they leave for, well, actually, they leave for other family situations. You had one who's leaving to go back to college.
Yeah.
You have somebody who's had a family change.
Right.
So that they need to, we don't have the
You don't have a
in
big turnover. is
BSS,
what you're
Robinson
saying?
County hires our people all the time.
Right. Yeah, my retention is actually good, Commissioner Bo. My turnover rate is not high at all. I'm very blessed with that, and I don't have a high turnover rate at all. It's just that our call volume is increasing in our county, so that I'm having to grow with the demand that we're faced with, and I'm having trouble recruiting with the fact that we're having to grow.
And you think the hour change will help you with that?
Absolutely, and that's not my word, that's the word of about 40 counties that have also done this.
Our change won't change your call volume.
No, it's not going to change the call volume, but the hour change is going to appeal to the market to attract them to us.
It's gonna be easier to have a life. Being an EMS is easier to have.
Yes.
It's gonna be easier to have a life that you can enjoy instead of working on.
And you're more likely to keep the ones you got.
And keep the ones that I currently have.
Yeah.
And because in conversations, he said that he has existing staff that do not want to go to a 12-hour cycle. So it would be, what he's looking at is a blend of 24 and 12-hour shifts.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Moving on, going with the elections, again, not a significant change. Within, they are looking at staffing for municipal elections in November. They will have revenue. In the current year, they have very little revenue. Next fiscal year, they will have about $20,000 to $30,000 of revenue in their account because we bill the municipalities for the cost of their elections. So that's why If you look, the elections department, their revenue goes from nothing to a percentage of their budget back and forth, because we can bill municipalities for their cost of their elections. But thereafter, we are looking, of course, at the primaries next year, which will be a large turnout. And of course, we always budget for the possibility of a runoff. They're also requesting an increase in their travel and training. Last 2 years, they've had all of their training virtually. This coming year, they said they're not having a virtual component to their training, which with Board of Elections, they are under mandated training. So they have to go, the entire board needs to go to these conferences. So there will be an increase in those costs. And counties overall have gotten to enjoy that option of not having to go to Raleigh for 2 days in the training. Public buildings, looking primarily at the big change there is looking at adding on to the shop. Right now, they handle the mechanical work for EMS, SCATs, and a number of county vehicles. It's all of health and DSS, some others, but they currently do not have the ability to, they don't have a lift that they can put an ambulance or SCAT bus on.
Where's the shop?
Across the parking lot from EMS.
Yeah, I got you.
Under the big tower.
Under the big tower.
Mhm.
So Calder is not doing, this who was using as a provider for county cars, not Calder, East Lombard.
Yeah.
Charles Calder.
Yeah, he still does some. Right now, the sheriff's department still uses primarily, more private. They do use the shop some, but they do use more private. But with this, what we're looking for is, or request is to build an expansion at the shop to allow for, to put a lift in. And then also add an additional shop of mechanic or a shop assistant. And with that, that would also allow the capacity, the sheriff is interested because the cost of those maintenance is just keeps going up. He can bring his services, his vehicles, and he has a fleet of about approximately 80 vehicles.
Well, would that come out of his budget? Would he
No,
have
that's
to
right.
pay the shop?
That's what my next question.
The salary and the cost would go into public buildings. When we do motor vehicle, you come in, SCATs or ambulance comes in for oil change, we have the cost of the materials that's charged back to that department.
Okay.
But it's only the cost of the material. So at that point in time, an oil change for an ambulance is $25 because that's how much oil and filters go into it.
So in
I
essence,
guess-
the sheriff's budget will be saved because he'll be able to do it through county rather than privately.
Yes,
I guess, let's speak about BJ. Maintenance will be paid for, the actual worker, the mechanic will be paid for through the county.
yes.
That's where the cost savings come in.
Yeah, but
But-
they still have to buy parts.
Should I have to buy, parts will be charged to that particular department.
Yes.
What about tires and things of that nature? We'll be able to do that as well.
They'll be able to do your standard maintenance, oil changes, tires, inspections, everything that's under your normal maintenance.
I can speak from us, and I'm not gonna speak for the sheriff's department, I don't know how they operate things. But for all of our vehicles, all tires come through Haney's because they honor the state contract.
I get that.
They are the only vendor in Scotland County that honors the state contract.
I get that.
So,
The city does that as well.
correct.
As far as paying for the mountain and the balancing, you can save on that. Because we have a mechanic doing that. So in the past, if a vehicle needs to go to Haney, you pay for the tires, you pay for mount, you pay for the balance, the rotation, whatever. That'll be the cost savings, having a mechanic on site. You
And
still
you're
buy the
not paying
tires.
that labor fee.
Not paying.
You're gonna have a mechanic
that skill to do? We already have one mechanic who's already, very capable. As a matter of fact, the, fire commission is using him to go off and get, just to review fire trucks for maintenance before they're sent out for work. Now, also, if someone needs an engine rebuilt or has transmission work, that's going somewhere else.
Well, you don't even do that really anymore. I mean, really now with transmissions and engine, you just replace now.
Yeah.
That's,
Cheaper.
yeah, it's just a
But
replacement.
to address John, we should be at the point where we have a mechanic, admitted vehicle that is county.
We do have a mechanic. This would just be adding a mechanic.
Yeah, I'm saying, you know, John had a question about someone capable of doing that. Admitted vehicles that this county owns, we should have a mechanic to deal with anything that allows us to. What about fleet vehicle? And we do have a good one.
I agree.
Good,
There's very little we can handle
good.
in-house.
But this is just, if we're looking, if the sheriff's department is bringing 80 vehicles in, that's just a workload issue.
Is that how many they got? How many have they got?
The conversation, I haven't looked at our fixed asset inventory on them, but just in our conversations I've had, it was about 80 vehicles was discussed.
No, I'm talking about how many vehicles this county owns, period. Just off the top of the head.
At least double that amount.
Close to 200,
Under 200.
under 200.
And of course,
Maybe 4 or 5 mechanics.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. And the only way we can maintain that number is because of the maintenance programs that we have, that we run. Also, we'll be looking at, in next year's budget, replacing the parking lot at the library. Other than Market Park, it's the, Martin McGraw says it's the worst work parking lot we have. We have already removed the trees around the perimeter of the parking lot. So now when we go in and replace it, we'll actually undercut the roots and everything that were there, so that we can go back in and put in a good parking lot.
Have we got any quotes on?
Yes, he has 2 quotes that are for, just for budgetary purposes. He just put in an estimate on 150,000. One quote was lower than that, but, that would cover either quote. And the one thing about it is we've seen where we get a quote and when we go out for bid, the company that gave us the quote is now 25% higher. So, but we do, he generally gets estimates for work that he's putting in. The library roof, I know that's been a point of conversation. That will probably be a request for next year. Maintenance has resolved most of the issues there as long as we maintain the internal gutters on there. It's in, repairs have been made, so it's a manageable roof right now.
Let me ask this question. In the meantime, while we're talking about the parking lot at Market Park, Brian, you about to answer this. It's not a pothole, it's a ditch hole in the center of the driveway. Is it on the state's property or our property?
You talking, is it Market Park?
Market Park, when you turn to go in,
If it's the ditch, it's state.
and when I say ditch,
It's in the middle of the driveway.
it's in the middle, of it. It's deep. And you have to navigate to get in. And my question is it on the states? It looks like it borders both. It's this big and it's that deep,
It's a pothole going into the driveway, so I would assume that's us. I don't know what.
but it needs to be taken care of, because,
It would be taken care of. Generally, when we do that, we
do the connector rate. My point is, that hole you can fill up with something now. I go in there
It's bad.
and, you have to drive around it to get in. If you're not paying attention, I mean, it's, you will knock your wheel out of line.
We get all the load of dirt or rock.
Yes, there's something rotten, something, it needs to be taken care of now.
Until they get through the paving, you know. we
Yeah,
can do the
you
whole-
don't need to wait for paving.
Try to fill it in.
It needs to be filled in. And of course, you couldn't know if somebody don't report it until you. I'm not complaining, I'm just reporting.
With the sheriff's office, sheriff office and jail, they're actually not looking at a significant change. The few changes that they are looking at doing, is as an additional SRO for Laurel Hill, Laurel Hill Elementary. This was already discussed with the board when you approved the additional, officer for Wagram. But this is something that this officer will be billed back to the schools. This was their request. But since it's a new position, the board has to approve it.
Has the school approved that position?
If not, they would approve it in next year. They would approve it in their next year's budget.
Oh, that's what they got some extra funds for recently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kevin, while we're on that subject, I know Judge Futrell made a request. Some of it had to do with additional courtroom personnel. Has that been addressed?
Containers and stuff.
Yeah, we're voting.
We were taking care of that. Because they wanted some improvement on their security system, the cameras.
Right. And yes, you've already taken action adding, two jailers.
Two
jailers.
Yeah.
So that was not part of this request.
So that sounds like that's what they're taking care of.
You make an additional request after that. I think you made a supplemental, request.
Yeah, now the sheriff is also still, trying to develop a proposal to upgrade the camera system in the courthouse. So, I think that will be,
We haven't addressed that from a financial standpoint yet.
not yet, because the sheriff is still working on
The
a proposal. And as soon as that proposal is ready, we'll bring that to you.
This is a little off subject, but, he had surgery yesterday. Has anybody heard anything else? Oh, was it tomorrow? Okay,
You can check on it tomorrow.
okay, I'll check on it tomorrow.
Also with that, we're looking at, he's, requesting either a designation of a maintenance person in the jail or just an additional person in the jail. That would be under maintenance. Not a jailer, but just somebody who, with the jail inspections, and you get copies of those every 6 months, because every jail is inspected every 6 months by the state. And with that, even though it's a couple of pages on, we found this, this, and this, honestly, those are still, in my mind, those are great reports, because when the issue is, well, the water's not hot enough, or there's a leak, or there's a light bulb out, that's a lot better than when 15 years ago, the issues were significantly worse. But the big thing of it is the jail just is a matter of constant attention, just with the environment that it is, the people that it's having, and also the gaining age of the facility. So the big changes in the jail is actually going to be in food cost. The vendor has already mentioned that they're looking for a 20 to 25% increase in the per tray meal. So, it's still under $3 a tray. And the jail has been working diligently to find the best price and keep those prices down. But, that's going to be a significant increase, in the jail budget for that. Medical is the other large line item, that's in the jail. Between food and medical, in the jail, that's generally $700,000 a year. And those are
Did you say food and medical? or-
food and medical. Food's generally about 300,000, medical runs closer to 4. And the only thing we control about that is who's in jail and who's not, and honestly, the sheriff does not control who's not in jail.
And when you say food, that's just food, that doesn't include the cook personnel, just food?
Right.
No.
Well,
Just contract.
it's contracted, so that,
So the food, that will be two separate,
so the 250 per tray includes the cooks.
include the cook, okay.
Well, all that's contracted to whatever the company.
So, but that's going to be a significant increase in the jail budget. But that's the only,
I thought we had decreased our inmate tremendously. That was just during COVID?
I'm not sure it was ever decreased, but maybe it was during COVID, but it can't be pretty full.
In full.
it was decreased, but it was decreased from 115 to 115 to 125 down to 100.
Okay.
And all those are over capacity.
So instead of being over capacity, we basically got down to capacity.
Yes. So, so that's the big benefit right now. I think our capacity is right at 115.
So no matter what our capacity would be, within a reason, we fill it up.
Unfortunately, yes. But a lot of that depends on the relationships that we have, or relationships and activities of the DA and the judges. And those actions have gotten better and faster. Which is why we've not been, or part of the reason why we've not been over capacity in the last 2 years, in addition to COVID. Also, the sheriff is implementing a new program where they get a psychological evaluation for anyone who's applying for a sworn position. That's $450 per hire.
Is that something? Is that a problem with something?
No, I can answer that. Every individual I hire went to a site. You like to know. And the site comes to a private provider to let you know whether the person is suitable or not to be hired.
Somebody who's gone through BLET, they don't do that.
They don't have to. I mean, anybody can, as long as they're a law-abiding citizen, go through BLET, don't guarantee them that they don't want approval.
So they don't do that screening there.
No, sir.
That's probably well spent.
Yeah, oh, God, yeah.
Guys, it's a problem.
And normally the 4 people do standard, like, they send them to Raleigh or send them to Fayetteville, a provider, and they give you a detailed account of what their evaluation looks like.
Kevin, for some of the medical issues that we have in the jail, in particular with clients or inmates, does the health department help cover any of those concerns, or is there no relationship right now between the two?
There's not a significant relationship. Medical provider is a contracted service. The health department used to be the provider in the jail, but that was switched 6 years ago.
In several years.
Any particular reason?
With it, the Southern Health Keepers, I believe is the name of the contractor. They had, because of the way they were designed, they had greater capacity to handle things inside the jail. than what the standing orders allow them to do inside the jail. So it reduced the number of people that we were sending to the ER.
Could we not save a lot of money by using the health department?
Ultimately, probably not. Because with that, they could handle a sick call. But once you start going into some of the issues that, they routinely have in the health department, in the jail, you would need a provider that has a different set of orders. Even though it's still a nurse that's in there, they're under a different doctor that has greater versatility in their standing orders than what the health department has. And the most expensive aspect of our health conditions, we do our best to send them out for safekeeping. We've had people who were in jail for extended periods of time who were pregnant. We've had people who have it's common to have someone who's had AIDS or HIV. We've had cancer patients in there. In the last year, we had someone who was in there who's had 3 different heart attacks.
They send the Central Prison for?
That he was sent to safekeeping at least twice. But once they got his medicine regulated, okay, you're safe, you're stable now, and sent back, and
And that falls in our hands.
and all those costs come right back to us. And you can have someone, of course, you have someone who has Medicaid insurance, but as soon as they hit 24 hours, they lose eligibility for Medicaid.
Judge, if they get an inmate in there that
Yes.
won't allow a crime,
Yes.
just make sure.
Oh, yeah, they
Modified bond or whatever.
they do their best, but like this last inmate who's had, ultimately surgery, heart surgery, with us, has had multiple heart attacks just because of the nature of their crime. He's not been given bail, or the bail that he was given, he can't make. Flip side to it is that if he were sent home 6 months ago, he would not be alive now because of his health condition.
You see the one we've spent about $200,000 on this.
We couldn't have put a bracelet on him, send him home.
That's up to the judge.
Yeah, not without the judge. You take him home, he can't go anywhere. He's not local.
Oh,
So even if you send them to Central, we're still responsible for that.
We
You
still
gotta
pay
pay, it probably costs us more to send the central than holding.
Most of our maternity patients, we send to Central. Or anybody who's under advanced HIV goes to Central. They are looking to, ask for 10 patrol cars instead of 5. And they do want to replace 20 of their in-car cameras.
And that's a little less than what I thought it was gonna be, because I think with their added positions and stuff that they needed, they were thought they were gonna need more cars than that, but, I mean.
Have they ever asked for 10 patrol cars before?
They used to ask for 7 or 8, and we had somebody on the board that was bounding the truck, they were. And it would get cut every year to 5, but now they end up with a bunch of cars with 200,000 miles on them, so. Yeah.
At one point in time, they were in a 7-car rotation. They automatically got 7 cars a year.
But that would get cut to 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so that's.
What did they get last year?
5. For the last several years, they've gotten 5 cars.
But now they find themselves with some very old models. So,
You know, they've got more officers too.
yeah, and they got more officers. I thought it was gonna be higher than that, so.
And of course, with that, if it goes to 10, that would probably become, you're going back to a standard request of 7 to 10 after that.
based on the employees they have there. Why does he need cameras? I don't know.
Just replacing existing
Or
cameras.
putting cameras in cars that don't have them currently.
Yeah.
I thought they all had to have them.
They all need them, yeah. And with that, in-car cameras, body cameras, those are extremely valuable because, yes, it does help keep the officer, honest in situations, but 95% of the time, 98% of the time, that camera will show that the officer, it shows the situation, so it winds up protecting the officer when there's a claim against him. Because the vast majority of claims against officers the officers are doing what they're supposed to be doing in the best way they can.
It protects us as a.
Yes.
Also helps to remind the officer how it needs to be done.
Yes. So,
Kevin, any kind of way we can get a hard number other than 10 and 20 as far as vehicles and camera costs?
He'll have that when he gets the final budget.
Gotcha.
yeah.
It's just preparing us for what he's gonna bring.
Well, I know what those in-car is, according to who the provider is.
And I've got that detail, a lot of that detail I already have, I'm just not throwing too many numbers at you today, that'll happen later.
In patrol vehicles, and God, we get off on a different topic, I want to move on here, but we gotta start looking at what's gonna replace the Charger, because Charger's going away this year. So, I mean, what I saw in the state contract, some of the stuff they could replace it with, that's a different topic.
Yeah.
Who asked this question? The last time we switched vehicles, I believe we were buying Fords or something.
Yeah.
And then all the electronics didn't fit. And when the changeover come here, how soon is that gonna be? They're gonna quit making electronic, of course, the one we get, we'll keep them a few years, so that's well down the road. I don't have to ask that, because that'll be your problem.
Well, most likely the change they'll make is going to a different Dodge, which is that,
Okay.
we call it the Rango, but it's got a different police use name,
Okay.
which will still be
We need to
just
call
the
it
same
Dodge.
car. It's
We need to
just got an
call it, okay.
SUV body on it.
You wanna be able to take the equipment out of that one,
Right.
put it in, not have to buy new equipment.
Right.
And with that, even if it is a different, you would, because with that, the, public safety should be going to, the new Viper radios, May or June. Now, they will, the sheriff's department will likely keep their current VHF radios in the cars as well, as a secondary. But with that, even if the console doesn't fit, the radio would still work. It would just be the console that's mounted in would have to be replaced.
Okay.
So it's as expensive to make that shit as it is to upfit a new vehicle in total.
Just to clear it up, the reason I want a hard number, because I know the number per vehicle won't include the camera. You know what I mean? Most time they give you a number per vehicle, it's not just the cost of that vehicle. You gotta pay for the equipment to go.
Right, and that's why we have, normally the number that will be in their capital request will be it's the contract price plus an additional $3,000 to $5,000 for all the, equipment, lights, striping, everything. Cooperative extension, no significant change in cooperative extension. They have been without a horticulture agent, that we share with Hope County. We'll be looking to hopefully hire that this summer. And again, the goal is to have that position shared with Hope County. IT, the big ship, the capital item there is an additional, new server that they're looking to do for disaster recovery. That, server, the current price on that server is $40,000.
But why would we house that here? And so if you've got a disaster, and if that thing is here, it's gonna be the same result. Or why would we not contract ain't the word I wanna use, but why would we not have that offsite? And have it in Michigan or wherever, you know what I mean? It's,
The goal is for, not for it's more for cyber attack than loss of a facility. Just so we have the capacity to restore, better back up our data and restore from it.
yeah, but even still, why would you not want that offsite? Why would you not, to me, and it may cost you the same amount of money.
Yeah.
But have that somewhere else that's more secure, that can protect it better, and even if our system backs up it every night or whatever the case may be, if we're backward. I'm just trying to figure, there's a lot of that out there to where it's an option to do that, not doing it internally, and again, it's probably not gonna save us any money, but, that would offer a better, because if it gets in on our primary server, it's gonna get into a backup server.
Yeah.
Unless that server's somewhere else that's already protected, and it could still be.
Right.
But,
Better protection.
yeah, well, there's a lot of redundancy sites, and most, and I'll just use my experience, banks have them across the country, there's a server farm in New York, there's one in South Bend, Indiana, and there's one in Phoenix, Arizona. And either one of those can go down, the other ones will pick it up. And, but I'm just.
And part of it is a lot of our data, now is being, if it's not already a hosted server, a lot of our data is already being housed in Google, which gives us some of that offsite and that data recovery potential, as well. So that gives us raw data capacity. Some of it would be a situation where we're having a server that if we need to go off and switch back to, pull the data off of Google for, have backups there so that we can, reinstitute a LAN here if we lose internet service. Yeah. Oh, if we lose internet, there's a lot, we just can't do anything.
What were the COT systems with the registered, and I'm not saying that they set the system up, but the COT systems, why, a company that big, why do they not have what you just described in banks? Because we had a major breach for a month and a half.
Because I don't think that was the problem. It got in their server.
Okay.
And once it got in there, it just goes.
And my guess is they do have.
They probably do.
They have a backup
But it
somewhere.
sprayed it when it got in there. So,
Couldn't afford not to have a backup.
and by the time they walked over and literally unplugged it, which is my understanding of what they did.
We have no person, so
Yeah.
they didn't sit doing it.
Right. And somebody got there to just physically unplug it to stop the stupid thing from doing that. It was too late. So,
Do our IT people have any input with the decision you described there with COT, or do they not, does independent? And have no input on
With,
the improvements or the better security that,
the registry of deeds.
yeah.
that's one thing, Paige is gonna be working with, IT on, but right now they're waiting on,
COT.
COT. COT is expected to make make an announcement, I believe in April, to the North Carolina Register of Deeds, and talk about what they're doing moving forward. The Secretary of State is expected to get that, get that announcement, or at least is expecting, the Secretary of State is expecting that announcement as well. And we're going to be watching that moving forward also, so.
Good one to watch.
And and of course, having the Secretary of State involved is a whole lot more impressive than having than having 60 registers across North Carolina.
How about the AG?
Uh,
Are we involved too?
I'm not sure. I know Paige has had conversations with the Secretary of State's office. But that is also kind of the situation of why we're looking at, having an on-site. We're also, with that, the North Carolina National Guard does have a cyber team, that they actually did an analysis of, the county's network, several months ago. Then they provide that report back to IT and for a chance to make modifications. And then this coming summer, they will hack into our system. And they will, well, their goal is to breach our system and find out all the weaknesses that we have that have not been made any modifications. And with that, they will get into our system.
You have to hospital probably to do that, but.
Yeah.
Just how far they can go,
Yeah.
I mean.
So, but, so that is there, and we are looking at making other modifications in our network for security purposes. Because it is a situation that it's not a matter of if we have a cyber event here, it is when we will have a cyber event here. And that's gonna be that's gonna be one of the items that we're gonna be looking into moving forward. And part of that is also gonna be looking into, how many of our servers should be on site, how many of them should be hosted, how we analyze things. Our financial software, that is a hosted server. We log on through a remote tunnels there. DSS, they have data on their server, but most of those servers they actually access are state servers. Our tax server is local. Register of Deeds had a local server, but that was done away with a number of years ago. But
I think our tax should be hosted.
Sorry?
You think our tax should be hosted?
That's something that we'll look at when we, especially when we start looking at replacing our servers. But as more information comes from Register of Deeds, we'll look at trying to figure out how we have a local backup of our data. Having the data, a backup of the data is one thing, but we also need the software to be able to access it. So figuring out how that can happen. It would not be to publish the data, but just so we would be able to access it locally or in the office. With the library, most of it is moving forwards effectively unchanged from the current year. They are going to be looking at installing security cameras throughout the facility so that they can be monitored and of course recorded. And that is primarily just a safety issue more than anything else. And again, the roof will be expected to be in the 2025 fiscal year.
Is there any money projected or contemplated in regard to some of the things we saw when we visited there last month? Shelving.
The shelving, yes, Leon has a price estimate on the shelving to have that project installed. The project for the shelving was $225.
259 was the total price. I've got some money.
Is that replacing all the shelving?
Yes, sir. It's making it, it's bringing the library up to ADA compliant.
So, and that can be done if the board's interested. You can go ahead and take action on the request, or that can be rolled into, this upcoming budget as well.
Something we can get out of the way in this current budget.
Yes.
Well, I think the idea was ARP money for that one.
Yes, that was the request for our funds. And if that's something that the board wanted to go ahead and do, getting that done before June 30th would be the preference.
Yeah.
You see now,
Get it out of the way.
You get that out of the way.
you need a motion now? When you say now?
Yes.
next month?
If the board would go ahead and make a motion to proceed, and we'll give a budget amendment at the April 1st.
I'll make a
Actually,
motion.
but we did, let me ask a question first. Was there anything else that we saw that day that we needed to address? Or does that cover everything?
Yeah, that's a good question. Does that cover everything? Does that cover the moving of the desk and all that, or the new counter and all that? Does that cover that too?
$230,000 from the recovery monies would be enough that I should be able to do it all
Do it all.
With what you already have.
with what I already have.
Yeah, so there you go.
I'll make
Make a motion that we
I'll
move
second
it
it.
now.
230,000. I don't want to put a word on it.
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and this will come from ARP money, correct? Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, okay. So we still have tax officers.
Yes.
Or
Inspections. Two things there, looking to review the fee structure, probably more in the electrical permitting fees. One of the big reasons there is just we've not reviewed our fee structure in several years, making sure we're comparable with surrounding counties. But also specifically the electrical fees, because with that, for solar farms and agricultural houses, chicken houses, things like that, the electrical permit is the only permit that's required. And so, that will, a recommendation will be made on those. Also, we do have our fire inspector, is eligible to retire in July of next year. So we were going to go ahead and request a position now. I think the last time we were recruiting for an inspector, it took at least 6 months to find someone who qualified for a probationary position, and then it took them another year before they qualified for their first level one. It's kind of like environmental health positions. For the first year, they're practically useless. They're learning, but the state does not give them permission to do much. The state is looking at changes for some of the probationaries, so we are going to be, so the request is that we add an inspector. Now, when the fire inspector, when he retires, we would not fill that position again, so that it would just maintain 3 inspectors. So, but we just know it's going to take us time to.
When is he retiring?
He's eligible next July, July 2024.
But he may not.
But he helps with the inspections also, don't he? With building inspections.
Yes, he's level 3 in all the trades.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So, and whoever we bring in, if we're lucky, they'll have level 1s. And
Is there going to be a need for the 4th inspector?
I don't, with Zopaco coming in, it's going to be very busy, but long-term, we do not need 4 inspectors right now. As long as the city maintains doing their, fire inspections. So, but if we brought somebody in, this coming year, we would need we would need those 4 positions because for the first year, that one position can't do
Yeah.
anything.
That's right, that's right.
You don't anticipate being able to hire a level 3 yet?
No.
No.
Where,
We'll
We'll get
train
one from
them.
Robinson or Richmond County.
They have to train them. You better-
Well, if push comes to shove, you could contract somebody, short term.
we could try, we would make that if we could. And we have done that, especially in environmental health. Right now, we are extremely fortunate because, our 3rd inspector now is expected to have his final level 3 this year.
That's good.
So we're in a much stronger position than most counties around us. So, and that's the reason I don't know that we need a 4th inspector going on. If we did not have that capacity, you know, if we had 2 level 2s, we would probably need more inspectors.
Does everybody know what that means? The level 1, 2, and 3?
Roughly, yeah.
Basically.
Don't ask me to write the job description.
Yeah, well, you know enough not to have to go out there and do it.
All we need to know.
Well, when he said level 1, 2, and 3, I didn't know if everybody
Level one.
understood what that meant.
We know enough to stay out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and for overly simplified, level 1 is they can come out and they can check your house. Level 2, they can go check a business. Level 3, they can check a school or an industrial site.
So with all the commercial sites that we have coming in,
You need more than a level 1.
right,
For the tax office, and we'll have more conversation next month with the tax office. But some of the big changes, of course, we are looking for the 2027 revaluation because we're actually going to be starting to work on that. And they've already started working on reconciliations, improving those now. But we will need to be officially doing field work by January 25, on that. Because it will take 2 years to get that, work in progress. Now, we have not done a full remeasure where they go out and they take an in detail look, they check and make sure there's no additions or anything, deletions on property, since 2004, 2002, during that last reevaluation. So the question will be, do we do a full list and measure in this one? Do we split the county up into zones? Especially if we look to, after that, do we go to a 4-year reevaluation cycle or stay with an 8? So, but one thing that we're looking to do, and we'll have, again, a conversation about this next month, is I'm sure you've all seen the aerial imagery on GIS. There's another type of pictometry that's done. It basically takes an image at a 45-degree angle. It's much lower. So basically, with that aerial, we can see the front, or we can see all the way around your building.
really.
We can see the front of your house.
Now, is that with the current GIS we got now? You know, because we changed the GIS.
Yes.
Is that,
It would layer in on top of that system.
okay.
I would think currently you see front of the structure.
But
That's
this
street
is,
level, you got a street level to the front.
On most,
But you can't.
Not on all.
And this would be useful for the tax office, but it'd also be extremely useful for public safety. So if you're looking for, a house, hold on, I pull it up. Okay, you're looking for a yellow house with a red door versus
Yeah.
they have a metal roof.
Also, the tax department can see if you built a shed out the back too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Is this from personal experience?
camouflage the top. Just, we got an estimate, last year on this, and the estimate was about $160,000, but they said they would actually finance it over 4 years. And, you know, for just breaking the payment up, and the reason to do that is so that hopefully in 4 years you do it again. And they're already flying. The state is basically, you just have access to their data.
Probably already done.
Yeah.
Okay, can we take about a 10-minute break? Come back about 10 minutes to. Okay.
I'm just gonna talk about, sales tax, property tax. And then,
I appreciate it.
I've had it.
Oh, no, good.
Oh, man. This man. Good. I'm gonna bring you today. Okay. Because you probably want to have a little more. I don't think they do. I'll bring you. I'll bring you.
Unfortunately, I know you are.
They do call. Yeah, man. Two calls last night. We're at Allen Girl. One Allen. She was over. They called last night. They said, "Oh, walk out with you."
Let me look into it. I have the superintendent's name somewhere.
Okay.
I was gonna add it up, well, I haven't. Per call, that's what I'm saying. Per call, and sometimes longer. You know, the situation. But I mean, you're small. How you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. Yeah, we're very busy. But I'm very proud of myself. I know a lot of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm getting married this Saturday. No, she's big, Raleigh. Appreciate it. I need to put another commercial on your radio too. I can do something. I need to put that. You know. We can get
Well, I know it's, that banana bread plus the salt.
What you talking about?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
but that's on the agenda, I think.
I am learning in my older days.
I gotta get my glasses on. I can't read those things.
They're not gonna listen to you anyway, right?
What's up, what's up, what's up? You ready for the weekend?
Yes. Oh, have you not gotten there yet? Go to the stretch class.
The stretch class, okay.
No, I think one of their employees, they come to our church, I know, exercise class and got started dance.
That shit.
Thank you, sir. Don't know about, I found it, I just, the district in Lexington, and we're going to, I'm getting out of my, I got some more fun, you been, getting in and out of Tammy's mind, I can just work. It's amazing after just 10 days, I do it on the weekend, she doesn't, I'll just, once on the weekend.
We'll just need to do a budget amendment for the consent agenda.
She has a stretch class and then two right
Yeah,
there. Same day. She was like, start getting tired.
My wife was gonna, so I think before these 8 weeks are over, we're gonna be making a notice. And we've done that.
I got it.
First she was like, now she's starting to get tired, her legs are starting to hurt, back down a little bit.
Well, there's this week, she said she's not at 90.
That's the reason he's wanting.
Go tie the knot, go tie the knot.
Yeah, but that class does love, man.
Yes, sir.
Love back there. I mean, they're-
You got there with
No, no, no. No, but they have about 40.
That's got a whole lot more.
That's got some place, man. They have a good one.
It says somebody, you gotta look at, I don't know what this. Guy
Who owns it?
One. Yes. That is something to do with Look,
Each one of us are right.
They're about right, right? Yeah, see, that's a new one.
I don't miss one.
They're just mad about not getting the
That's where I draw the line.
It is.
I'm blocking it.
If you don't, like my brother-in-law did,
Fireworks request from the city.
That will be
That's
on
on
the
April.
April agenda.
But you don't need this.
I got one. He sent it to me, he emailed me.
Right over the yard today.
Well,
He's making sure nobody has no medical problems.
So he did do it.
It's going good, John. I like it, sure. I'll tell you what, that's. I'm just saying, that's why we don't have a. Oh, I got one too.
Oh, yeah, I explained that to you.
I know that, man, I'll tell you what, I know you drink, but I had enough for Oh, yeah. I heard about that. I heard about
We had a special meeting.
Yeah.
I got that too. Can't hear. Like a bird.
Try not to bug your more. That's right. And that was how it was.
Yeah.
All right, let's come back together. Let's do it. Before we lose. We're down two. Wow, before the break.
That's always a risk. Appreciate you taking a break, so.
Yes, sir, I appreciate it. I was right.
Well,
Whit and I needed it over here. We've been working hard.
Nobody will.
absolutely.
All right. With that, right now, the current estimate for next year's valuation is 2.45 billion for Scotland County. That's the total assessed valuation, based on utilities, which are actually done by the state. We get those in September. Motor vehicles, as well as real and personal property that's assessed.
Question, you may not know the answer to this, since you said motor vehicles. I noticed that motor vehicles now, I know we've been paying a 3% fee to the state for taking that, but they're charging that fee now when you renew online with a card, they charge that fee. So are we gonna lose that? Or are we gonna still have to pay them?
We still have to pay. The 3% fee that we pay is also, it was to make the agencies profitable to get vendors in to do those collections.
I just noticed, I really did run on one recently, they were charging that fee.
So, but with that, at the $2.4 billion, which is an increase of approximately 70 billion over 22.
Whoa, that didn't sound right.
No, sorry, 70 million.
I wish it, there we go.
70 million.
Oh, we'll take it, but.
I, you know, That's two nuclear power plants. That is an increase of 70 million over last year's valuation. But with maintaining the current tax rate, that will come back in, and that gives approximately 23.6 million of revenue, maintaining our collection rate at 96.65%. Our current budget is 23,419,000, so it is a slight increase. Right now, just for real property, not including motor vehicles, but last year, for all of 2022, we collected 20.2 million. Right now, we have collected 20.4 million. I expect to probably collect another 350,000 in between now and the remainder of the year. So we will be right at the 850 collection rate by the end of the year.
That's just on property.
That's property taxes.
What was that last figure, 20 point?
We're expecting, I expect us to be right at, the budget of 20,850 for collections. Collections from March through the end of the year, we'll collect, we collect a very small percentage. It's still $300,000 or $400,000, but it's still a small percentage of our collections. We'll see a bit of a bump after the advertisement that's just gone out, but,
That seemed to be bigger than normal. I don't know what the number was, but comparatively speaking, but that was a big leap.
yeah. And right now, just looking at motor vehicles, we collected 1.5 million for 7 months. Just projecting that out, it will be right at 2.7 million for the remainder of the year. So we will have the option to go off without an increase in, without a change in the tax rate. It would allow for a slight increase in budgeted revenues.
Kevin, when you said 2.7, is that 2.7 plus the 1.5?
The 2.7, the 1.5 is the first 7 of 12 months, making up the 2.7. And then sales tax collections. Come back in here. Right now on our sales tax collections, through February, we have collected just under $4.9 million in sales taxes. By February of last year, by the end of February of last year, we collected just under, just 4.76 million.
But we ended with like, 9.5.
Yeah, we ended at 9.5. And, you know, that was at 57%. So if we're looking at, if we're assuming we're hit collection rates at around 50% of our collections, then we're looking at, again, $9.7 million. So it does allow for an increase in our property tax and our sales tax revenues again also. And that would just be without looking at an increase beyond that. We would go off and say, this is what we can reasonably project that we're going to collect for this year. And that would be the base amount that we would project for next year. We generally do not do an increase in sales tax going forward. So we will have an increase in revenues from property and sales tax next year's budget without a change in tax rate on that.
Now, Kevin, let me ask you, and it's because I don't know, does the sales tax, does that go into our general fund?
Yes, sir.
So it goes directly into our general fund, okay.
Yes, sir. There is some that's allocated into the fire tax, just because we do an ad valorem method, so a small percentage does go into, to the fire department. Some of the, sales taxes that we receive are restricted for educational uses. So, with this amount, we have, let's see. Well, I believe it's, this one. So basically we'll have $2 million. When we look at the, school budget, especially for the debt service, there's an amount of restricted sales tax. That amount of, the local option sales tax that we have is designated. It can only go to educational for capital outlay and debt service.
Right.
So, of the total of $90.6 million, 2.5 of it you don't control.
Right. Okay.
Or you don't, you have limited control.
Right.
But the rest of that is effectively goes into the general fund with, out significant restrictions.
All right.
And those revenues are gonna be part of what we're gonna be looking to rely on, especially for the, increase in the salary study. That was done this past year. We budgeted for an expected half, expected a 10% increase. So there's still part of that, because we'll have the total increase. The 10% we budgeted was higher than the actual. But there will still be another $400,000 estimate increase in our salaries for next year, just from the implementation of the last salary stuff. But these increases in property taxes and sales taxes should be. And those are the major swings that we have in the budget at this point in time. So with that, the goal is, I'll still be looking at determining what type of cost of living adjustments can be made. Because even though we did a salary study, that's still an issue with inflation. But with that, I'm not looking at I'm not going to recommend a change in the tax for that. But with that, it still does, we will have, there's still always going to be a number of restrictions on things that will not be in my recommendation.
And that's without hitting fund balance.
Correct.
Does it look like we will end the year being able to add any money to our fund balance?
This year, no and yes. On the books, we will most likely add fund balance because I do expect in May or June to bring in an amendment where we're gonna look to apply the ARPA funds, anything that's not designated, putting that back into public safety dollars. So basically, I'm gonna spend $2 million out of this. So basically, you're gonna cut the county budget operations by 5%. But then we're still gonna track those dollars, so our fund balance will be increased, but it will still be designated for those purposes. We're just doing that to get rid of those. But beyond that, I do not expect an increase in fund balance this year for operations.
But not a decrease in year.
I don't expect a major shift.
Anything? Any questions? All right, that's it.
But, hold on. Now, what are we required to have in the fund balance? Or as a requirement?
The statutory minimum is 8%. That is 1 month's cash flow, which is significantly too low. The LGC goes off and compares us to other counties of below 50,000 population, and the average there is 25 to 30%. We're on the low side of that, but then again.
So what percentage do we have in there right now?
We have approximately 19%. The board has adopted a policy so that basically, at below 16%, you take action to increase fund balance. Above 24%, you take actions to reduce fund balance. That means that's when you fund additional capital projects and things like that. And that's where we got some of the local funding for all of the community center and things like that.
Okay.
Yes, if I had anything, we're getting ready to wrap it up.
Well, that part of it. Yeah.
We have some more.
Discussion, yeah, we still got items.
Okay.
Have you got a date?
I wish.
Oh, you can't get one sitting in here, okay?
Hold what you got till commissioner comments.
Yeah, I had something I wanted to say. Okay, I'm with you.
I got a date. You going with vote if you will.
Actually, I do.
Have you got that everything?
That's everything I have.
Okay, thank you. Just the next item is the liaison committee discussion. I really don't have anything to discuss. We haven't met again until we do tonight. But everybody, we talked about at the last meeting, pretty much holding the line on what it was last year. Is anybody had any thought process or anything different or whatever? Because I hope tonight that we can just nail this shut and be done with it, not end up like what we had last year. So,
I would be interested in those members who aren't on the liaison committee, if they have thoughts about the direction we ought to be going with that. If you have them. Bo is packing up. I know he's got he does have a date.
His mind is somewhere else.
So hearing none, we'll move on. All right. If you do, let us know before tonight. Legislative goals prioritization. Adam should have gave you all a sheet. We were there, but y'all, this is what we had yesterday. There's a duplicate on there about the EDC, but Speaker of the House Moore met with us, and his thing was prioritize what you want, and then there was some other little requests that he made in there with that. But his big thing was prioritization. And this, I don't even know who typed this up. Somebody did. But I'm almost to say that that's prioritized about the way we need it prioritized. So, they talk very good of the chances of most of this happening. I think if something comes out, it'll probably be the EDC appropriation. but I don't know that, but, they still got a long way to go in the budget. But everything else, they were pretty agreement with. That was Secretary Moore, Representative Pierce, Senator Britt. We met with, House of Rep, Lowry from Robinson County also, and we met with Tom McKinnis. So, and they were all, nobody blinked an eye at any of it. So,
One of the, when I remember that was the speaker or the president of the Senate. We did, said that, industrial development is a high priority.
yeah, but they also talked about there was gonna be a different fund.
Okay.
Because they're limiting how much they're gonna do. So it's not gonna look like a regular budget this year, the way they're gonna do it. They're gonna cap it at $500 million of what they're gonna give out. But they're gonna put out other funds out there for
Specific issues.
specific issues, water things and that type of thing. So, he said it's not gonna look like, he said this won't actually get approved until it goes through conference. And so,
After the budget.
which will be after the budget. But they thought all of it would do pretty well.
What's the 450,000 for land?
Talk about your.
450,000. As I was saying before, we were talking about our issues, and we've been focusing on gyms and what have you. And a number one problem, I think three of them are number one, that's education, housing, and violence. But we haven't spent any time talking about housing. And I believe if we purchase some land, and I would say Laurel Hill area, Laurinburg, and give that land to the housing folks here. Make that.
Housing authority.
Housing authority. And maybe assist with the application for the grant. I was told years ago, a lot of money to apply for the grant. She told me 50,000 a few years ago. I don't know if that's a fact today. But anyway, we've just been sitting mute, and there are people raiding every month looking for housing. There's nowhere to go. They're just stacking into these dilapidated housing, which these people are homeless. We have a lot of homeless people in Scotland County. They're just not on the street. They're in overcrowded, dilapidated housing. But we, housing authority will jump on it if they can get some help. So that's what I would hope the board will look into, purchasing some land in the Law Hill area, because all up in there, people live. I went to a mobile home last night and I couldn't believe it. Could not believe the condition of that home. So, and 5 people were in it, and I wouldn't put an animal in there. And so I'm just saying, let's do something.
Can I ask you a question on
Yes,
this?
sir.
Now, and I don't know a thing about the housing authority.
You know much as I know.
Huh?
You know much as I know. Go ahead.
But now, I just know what people have said, you know, and I've heard people's concerns and what was told to me is that when Laurinburg Housing builds a complex, that there's more people come from other counties to that complex instead of the people from our county. And that's what a lot of people have told me.
Well,
And like I said, I don't know, but that's what I've heard.
well,
I mean, if we done something like that, you know.
well, if our people, first of all, the housing that's gonna be built in the Johnson area, she's saying 48
Yeah.
units,
Mhm.
and she has 49 families now with vouchers and no houses for them right now. If she built today, okay, let me finish. If she built it today, she can fill it up in 2 weeks. We did one in Fair Bluff or whatever, and same way, council of government. It'll cost you, the time you get them built. So, yeah, people gonna come in because if a person application is of such that they have felonies, rapes and murders and all that, you don't qualify for nothing. And so those people won't get anything because nobody can live next door to them. They, you know, they can't be around children, and so we'll have some of that, but the other folk will qualify, and they'll go, but yeah, people gonna run to them, they're gonna come in, yeah.
That's the thing, and I know where you're going with that about maybe just Scotland County folks in it, but like the Section 8 voucher, that covers a 10-mile radius of the county border. And that's federal money, so you don't control that. And so it's, you know, it's kind of like when the federal and states in there, they don't want it combined just to Scotland County, just like we're offering a business incentive to come and say, well, if you hire these 100 people, they gotta be Scotland County. We can't do that if the state or federal is involved. But anyway, go ahead.
You do applications and the qualified one get the place, because the place has to be paid for.
But it's impossible to do what you're, I mean, through housing authority.
Okay.
You can't, we won't be able to limit it to just our residents, because housing authority doesn't operate that way.
Applications.
But if we bring more low income folks into the county, don't that increase our spending on our DSS and our health department? And
Well,
if we bring people from other counties, and I'm not against it, the only thing I'm saying is,
well, we have the same.
I don't care about Richmond County and
Yeah.
Robinson County and
How
Moore
can you
County.
serve our residents?
You know, I care about Scotland County.
But, it's the same thing. We have people here going out.
Yeah,
It's the same thing like the workforce. We have 5,000 going out, 7,000 coming in. It's not balanced, but that's just the way it is. You're not self-sustainable anymore.
The only
It's a
way we
region.
can do what you're saying is if we funded it, we built it, and we managed it, is about the only way
You can do that.
And I don't think that's
We can't
possible.
afford
We
to do that.
can't afford
We
it.
can't do that. We gotta go through the housing.
Yeah, you talking about a whole other setup there.
well, now, this outfit or company or whatever they are that we, give the land to in, behind IEJ. Now, are they going through the same, are they going, you say
It's
they
much
got?
the same. It's
Pretty
much
much
the
the
Same money, federal money, they
Federal
don't follow
money,
the
yeah, that's what I'm
guidelines.
saying, federal money.
Yes, federal,
They're-
state.
If they build what they say they're gonna build over there, if it's all maintained by them, and it's, she said that people could actually buy those units.
The house.
The house.
The house.
But I don't know how often that's actually gonna take place. Is there any taxes paid on that property to Scotland County?
I don't know if they do or not.
Um,
I mean, they ain't mad, but so he ain't losing, like, you know.
Well, but
There are,
we need to
but
do
it's
things to gain
limited,
something.
but if it's income-based housing, it is limited. Freestanding house, I'm not sure about, that's rented. I'm not sure about, but the apartments, those are discounted.
If I own a house and rent it out through Section 8,
You pay.
I pay property tax on it.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what's gonna happen there, but I don't know the ins and outs of that.
Doesn't the housing authority make payment in lieu of taxes?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not sure if it's equivalent, but I think they're
Uh,
the same.
They make a payment in lieu of taxes, and it is a percentage of what it is
When you say a payment to us?
to us. And that's because their housing authority, Ford County is not a housing authority, but Park Place, because they have income, they have federally subsidized housing that's income-based, they get a discount on their property taxes, I believe. So they do pay property taxes, but it's not the same as Granada Terrace.
Discount.
You mean Greenfield though, right?
So on this, I wanna ask, now how do we go about identifying some property and in the Laurel Hill region area and Longburg?
Well, as the Laurel Hill representative, I think you'd be a wonderful candidate to select that area.
But I think the matter we're dealing
I'd
with
love
today
to do
is
it.
prioritizing
Thank you. Yes,
The-
yes,
And I just didn't know what it was. I think,
Yeah,
I think the
I-
list is, I don't have any problem with the list.
I got you.
I
And
just-
we need
I
to
didn't know
do
what
that
that was.
list, next week, they want this list back.
Mr. Chair, I actually
Yes, by
think
Friday.
it's improper. For me,
To me, it
I like
looks,
it the way it is.
right, like I said, that was unintentional when whoever typed it up, but I mean, that's
It was good.
good. And if you've seen it, right?
Yeah, I have a copy of it, yes, sir, thank you.
Because I think that's gonna,
I'm fine with the words.
so be good with the areas. I don't wanna do a vote, we'll just have a consensus on it, but send it back to, I guess Garland or Tim Moore's office, whoever was wanting it. and do it.
Go back to Garland's office.
Yeah.
And this came from his aide.
Sandy, you need a copy of it?
Yeah, please.
Okay. We may have another one, if not, you have this.
Yeah.
But there is a duplicate on there for the EDC. That $2 million is a duplicate, so take one of those off. All right, moving on. So we got that. We'll turn it over to the vice chair for boards and committees.
So I only have two appointments, three, but really two. The first one is Mr. Kirk McBride to, the Board of E&R. And then Dr. Harold Hughes will be, the appointment, dentist appointment to the Board of Health. And Ms. Betty Golson, who was the dentist appointment, will be moved to public citizen appointment. So she'll remain on, but she'll just move her appointment. So I make the, motion that we make those three appointments this morning.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Hey, just a question, did you say Betty Golston was the dentist before?
So you can appoint a public citizen in those spots if you've had it open and tried to get somebody for a long time.
Okay.
So when Ms. Golston, when we appointed her, we appointed her into that because she wanted to be on, but we didn't have a vacancy.
But
But if you needed two full, she'd be glad.
but if, whenever you have that and you have someone that is a dentist that applies, then you are obligated to put them in that dentist appointment.
You said, what, Harold?
I've never known that guy. I've known him for 30 years, never known his first name.
I didn't,
That's what he came through on the.
H-E-R-A-L-D.
I didn't,
B-E-A-R.
All right, so we have a motion
I didn't
and
know
a
that
second.
was his name.
We had no more discussion. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we're gonna move on to county commissioner comments, and I'm gonna take a minute, so I ain't gonna vote. You got anything?
Yeah. So we all been talking about this, extending that county water up on Turnpike Road.
Mhm.
And, I see where you come back with something for $9.5 million or nine something million dollars like that. I ain't got my stuff in front of me. And we're only talking about 3.5 miles maybe there. And, you know, you already got water on Turnpike Road. The county's already on Turnpike Road, so it's pretty much a straight shot. I know when we done the last legs, when y'all done the last extensions, actually one of them was right by my house, the county actually done it. Matter of fact, I think Bryant, I think he's the one that, done it.
He was running through, yeah.
Yeah, that runs the crew to come up there and done it. And I'm not sure, but I think they done that whole extension right there, and I think that extension was about 3 to 4 miles long. They done that whole extension for around $400,000.
Okay.
And, so what I'm saying, so I've done a little figuring on my own, and, but we can do that extension for under $1 million. And that's putting a fire hydrant for every 1,000 feet. And that, I think that's the minimum in the county. But, I think we need to relook at that, because I think ain't we got $75,000 in on it now? 750,000, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's designated.
That's designated. I think we're pretty close. If we will really look at that, I think we can do that somewhere close to what we got designated for, if we really look at it. And I know we could if we done it ourselves.
Well, didn't we have an engineering estimate originally for $3 million?
That was talking with City of Laurinburg and their department. And that was, I think, a 2 mile.
2 or 3 miles, yeah, because that other thing we just got showed like 9.5 miles. And-
Yeah,
and-
Which is
and
overkill.
Is overkill.
Yeah.
And the 12-inch mains, which we don't use those to the city.
Who came up with nine, who, were these people from Washington DC?
That was the engineer that's the primary engineer for the.
What was the reason for the nine, for the, so?
Well, they got a lot of 12-inch pipe in there, and I think they, you know, I don't think when you put 12-inch pipe in, it's for industrial use or heavily populated areas. Now, I've done the, let me see if I can find it here, but I've done the pleasure of running some numbers on this thing. And I was gonna print it out, but I didn't get a chance to, guys. Oh, but, you know, for my calculations, that's putting $50,000 in for the engineer. You know, I think we can do that thing for around $750,000, and we can do it around about $350,000 if we done it ourselves. From the that's, you know, with 6-inch pipe, hydrants that's hydrants every 1,000 feet. And that's not in with the taps now, you know, the taps ain't in that thing.
So the tax would be the individual.
Right, that's what I'm saying, that's the reason I didn't put the taps in. But I had to figure that we can do that thing for $750,000. I think we need to get some estimates on it.
Yeah, cause we got 750 designated already, art money. And we got what, $3 million in the water fund in cash that you can't spend on something else. And, you know, even if you have to take $1 million or $2 million, because I don't need it all, but.
Well, there's no way that thing's gonna take over $1 million. There's no way. And especially if we do it ourselves, and we got all brand new equipment sitting there to do it with.
We get that in writing.
Huh? Yeah.
Kevin, what are your thoughts?
I have no idea, honestly. Send me what you got, because part of it is also what the engineer did, because the original estimate was with the first group of people that we talked to. So I basically said, okay, if we did this 2-mile stretch of land from the back of the aircraft up to the church, you know, how much would that be? And that came up to the first estimate.
Right. Yeah. Well, I got an estimate from, you know, I done an estimate myself because, you know, my company does the same thing. So we kind of done an estimate of ourselves. And then I called Frank Horn out of Fairmont, which does, I think he's done some for us, and I think he's doing the cities right now.
Mm-hmm.
I got an estimate from him. Actually, that was his numbers right there. That came from Frank. And then I got a Kenny Ring out of Moore County that does a lot in Moore County, and you know, all of them agreed. Well, do it under $1 million.
And part of it was with the engineering, it went from a 2-mile addition to a 9-mile addition, because
Using 12-inch pipe.
yeah, well, after that, we went off and we did a survey of people who were interested.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, basically, getting that survey back to the engineers and, okay, here's your addresses and everything. And that took it from 40 people who are the 40 people in this stretch. Now you have people over that 9-mile stretch.
So here's what else that's going to do. So if you catch it off a turnpike road, and you run it straight up Turnpike Road, actually you run it both ways, actually, because there's houses both ways. So if you shot that thing right up there, and then if you decide you wanted to take a left and go back to Deercroft, that's going to tie the loop in.
Mhm.
So you've killed 2 birds with 1 stone there.
Well, it also makes a bunch of land.
You're looking at still less than 4 miles.
It also makes a bunch of land at Deercroft marketable because of water. It may open up the
That-
property tax rate.
But does your estimate go down Turnpike Road?
Yeah.
To Turnpike Road? How far, you know?
3.5 miles. I just told them 3.5 miles.
Back,
I didn't tell them which way. I just told them 3.5 miles, because, you know, until we get serious with this thing and get these guys actually looking at it. But I just threw out 3.5 miles is what I threw out. Because we didn't have no kind of plans or nothing to go off of. So we just said 3.5.
Well, and I believe me, I'm not an expert at that, but I saw that 12-inch pipe, so we didn't have that in the city. That I know of.
Well-
We run 12-inch pipes for water line.
You know,
We have 12-inch pipe going up to Deercroft to that fire tower.
Yeah, and,
We got to feel that.
and not just that, and that's with one bore. That's with one bore under the road in that price. So I just throwed in one more.
Yeah.
Where they had to dig down the side of the bore up under the road.
So they have to cross. to get
Yeah.
it,
And, but if you come off a turnpike, you ain't got no bores. If you come up off a turnpike.
Well, you would if you went back to Deercroft.
If you went back to Deercroft,
You have one.
you would have one bore. And that way you turn right back and go back to Deercroft.
And we want to do that.
And absolutely, yeah, you'd want to do that. Cause that land is developing really fast up
Yeah.
there. I mean, you
Man,
look,
that's
they're
how we gonna
building,
go stop.
what's the name of that road? Peach Orchard? Is it Peach Orchard? You look at the houses they're building on Peach
Nice
Orchard
house.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're building them right on Peach Orchard.
Well, like I said, it would open up another market up there for Deercroft, the end of Deercroft to sell a bunch of lots for more residents.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we really need to get serious on that.
Get on the fast track and move.
And plus, now, we went up there to the meeting. I wasn't the commissioner at the time. But this was last year. Y'all had went up to the meeting. Some of y'all went up to the
Yeah.
meeting up there at the church.
Oak Hill, yeah.
Yep. And y'all didn't hear this, but I've heard some of the people talking. And they said, every time it comes election time, they come up here and promise us what? And that's what they were saying.
Mhm.
And one of the women back there said we had the same meeting 20 years ago, and they promised us what it is.
Okay. So it's time for us to get serious.
It's time to get serious with this, and it's time to get
Well,
these folks
if you have the
involved.
contacts, make them,
Send
we
me
can,
your.
let's.
I will get
We can't do it in this room right now.
I will get you the calculations on it,
We
and
can
I'll,
do it.
and I'll hook you up with 3 people, 3 contractors that could give you
If we
3.
don't, Ms. Goldston will not leave us alone, I promise you.
Well, it's something we need to do.
But it's just the right thing.
But, you know, I don't think we wanna run 9 miles if those last 5 miles sort of 2 customers either.
But I think it's an investment we need to make, because when you talk about from Deercroft to those residents, there's a lot of land that you're not gonna touch anybody, but it gives a potential for that to grow. So I mean, it's just an investment that we gotta take a chance on making.
And not just that, but, you know, pretty soon in Hope County and Moore County, they're gonna run out of places to build horse farms.
They're gonna start.
And they will start coming to the sand hills up in there because that's the perfect location. Perfect location. I really think the next 10 years, that the north side of the county is really gonna grow. But anyway, I'll get you the information on that, some contractors that, but I really think if we got the equipment, let's put it in ourselves. We did the last 2 extensions and saved a pile of money.
Yeah, it takes a lot longer just because we have a lot less people than you do. But you can save a lot of money with it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, we got the equipment.
Yeah.
And we got, 2 brand new tractors sitting down here? Or,
We have the equipment. now.
yeah, we got.
And we've upgraded our equipment.
Oh,
We haven't
absolutely.
done it in the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
We can do it at night too.
Hey.
We work at night.
And let me tell you something, putting water line in, guys, is just like you running at your well house out there, dig a dang hole with no pipe in the ground. That's all there is to it.
Can you put this on the fast track?
I mean, there's not much of a way you can mess that up, you know, just dig down through there and lay the line in the ground.
There's
And
a way
let
you
it
can
go.
mess it up.
And like I said,
If me, Tim Jordan, we, but it is messed up.
it ain't gonna be right, I promise you that.
So, you know, you pass the information on and you give us something so we can get it done.
Yeah, that's good.
Commissioner Gibson.
I'm good.
John, you got anything else?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to address this.
Don't steal my thunder, but go ahead.
Oh, well.
I was gonna let that
All right,
marinate.
fellas, it's
until-
close to
okay.
12 now, we'll be running.
I know, I was gonna let that marinate
No,
until the beginning of April, so.
I got some unsolicited information, and it was just given to me spontaneously. I was over there 10, 12 months ago, and, house director across from the gym talking to, I'm gonna call it his, right, and, we were talking about the taking of a house, and she said, John, you know, my house has been shot into twice. and my refrigerator was here, you know. I said, what? She was telling me about a friend, we used to be church members. And so we just talked, and so I was over, 2 months ago talking to the lady that's directly against, houses, adjoining, her property is adjoining Rem D batteries. And, she had visited my church, so I was over talking to her. She said, you know, my house been shot into twice. Okay? And so Monday, I stopped by Rem D battery upholstery, and we were just talking. And out of the blue sky, he said, you know, every house, John, on that street down to my house have been shot into. I'm just sharing with the board. They just shared that with me without any solicitation. So I want the board to believe you. Maybe they'll tell you the same thing. That's alarming. Every house has been hit by gunfire. And when I see this letter, that just jumps out at me. I'm through. I'm finished.
You know, John, I want to tell you something. I've had several phone calls. You know, guys, I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't know that you would get so many phone calls being commissioner.
You did?
But I have had a lot of phone calls, and I'm gonna tell you about that same thing. I've had a lot of complaints of people, like, I'm gonna use Turnpike Road. That's not where the phone call comes from, but I'm gonna use Turnpike Road. Where people that's got lots, these acre lots, where they live on acre lots out in the county, and they, and the houses are stacked in there pretty good. And they're getting out there on Sundays and Saturdays and target practicing on these acre lots. And nobody in 5 houses around can rest or sleep or come out of the house. Or come out of the house, because they're scared to let their kids out of the house because they're target practicing on these acre lots. And they get out there shooting all day, and I've seen a lot of that too.
Well, we passed the ordinance against that.
That's what I was gonna ask. Was there an ordinance passed on that, and what was it?
That was the sheriff's ordinance that he brought in, what with the berms and all that
We
stuff.
went through for 3 or 4 months.
Right.
So that's been,
It's passed.
It's called enforcement. I just heard.
well, apparently the citizens don't know it passed, because a lot of them just called me asking what they could do, and I didn't know it had passed.
Call them 911 and report it, and the deputies know about it.
But we did get you a copy of it.
Yeah. I would like that.
Yeah, we passed that the way the sheriff wanted it.
Why don't you send that to all of us?
Okay.
Yeah. Because apparently a lot of the citizens don't know that, because
No, he's talking about the county.
I'm sorry, I thought you were.
No, no, that's.
but because of that, people's houses are getting shot up. People target practicing on these small tracts of property, and no berms or anything like
Yeah,
that.
I don't really, you say my house is shot at too. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, my house usually gets shot up every year from these dog hunters.
In the city, it's drive-by. What he's talking about is drive-by.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I saw this letter, I just thought, what's gonna happen when our workers are over there and the building gets shot at, gets one time?
Yeah.
Well, we're $2 million into it. If you want to stop it, now's the time to do it.
I don't wanna stop it, I just know that if you put an employee over there, the employee ain't gonna come back to work.
I disagree with that, but I do think it's worthy of conversation.
Yeah, I'm not saying though, but we're gonna do that.
People will come for service.
We've got a board that we
But
should.
people gonna need people.
Well, I don't think we should split the DSS up, if that's what you're talking about. I don't think we should split them up, put half of them one side of the county, the other half on the other side of the county. I don't.
Well, we'll get that conversation.
Yeah,
That's where we're going with this conversation.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, we'll do that as
I just was doing this, what I'm hearing. I'm
we
like,
need to do that as an agenda.
I know that.
Instead of, general conversation. You got anything?
I had water, but he took that. I was gonna talk about the letter, but we wanna wait. The only thing I will say is Scotland. I don't want us to think that the only place crime and shooting is happening
Absolutely.
is over by IJ, because it's not. I'm in that neighborhood, more hours of the day than I'm at home, because that's where all my family lives. The reason that we are investing in IJ, I thought, was because that side of town, it has been forgotten. Much of the reason I think so much violence is happening there is because there's nothing positive happening. And I wanted to remember that as we move forward. But I'm gonna say that before we discuss the letter. And the last thing that I have, I'm sure you have, so I won't take that either, so I'll let you have it. So you have
Just reading my paper. Well, I just want to talk real quick, and, I'm gonna use my words wisely.
I'm gonna make a motion after that.
Oh, okay, all right. The city, and I don't know if they've even officially come back to us with that proposal, but I watched their meeting last night after somebody prompted me to do so. And their proposal to us is a payment of $50,000 a year, waiving of the solid waste tipping fees for household trash and for tearing down these homes, that we waive all that fee. And I'm forgetting something else. Inspection, waiving inspection fees for the city. So, I don't know what the tipping fees are, but I'm guessing somewhere in the tens of thousands of dollars. More than
Yeah, it could
that.
be more than that.
So,
In lieu of what?
in
Us
lieu,
meeting in their building.
one day a month,
That's it.
So I had rather that they just said no instead of making this silly proposal.
Yeah.
But I said I wasn't even gonna say that, but I did. Too late, I can't take
So
it.
I just make a motion.
But anyway, go ahead.
We
Withdraw our request.
Withdraw our request.
Withdraw our request.
that's a
Do
motion.
we have a second? All in favor?
Yeah.
All right, well, going on about that, I want to talk about and re-looking at our tipping fees, because I think we were giving them a discount on our tipping fee, weren't we?
We went up last year and we're going up again this year.
Okay. And then nobody ever wants to talk about this topic, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway. Our county fire trucks being used 98% of the calls in the city of Laurinburg. And I understand there's gonna be times that happen, but the city doesn't pay that fire tax to keep those trucks going, right? So the rest of the county is paying for the city's fire truck. If we took our fire trucks out of the city right now, they don't have enough to put in they don't even have enough to fill up one station, much less 3. I'm not gonna keep beating that dead horse, but if they're not gonna invest in fire equipment for their city use, then they're gonna need to be taxed like the rest of the county is to cover the cost of replacing these trucks.
Correct.
And then I'm gonna leave that alone. But anyway, then I wasn't gonna bring that up today, since we were talking about that. The only other question I had was about the Laurel Hill display case. Have we got anywhere with that?
No, what I was wanting to do, because it was a concept that, we're looking to do, or for Johnson and there, Leon said he was going to drop off that floor section.
Yeah, I don't know.
And actually use it from there and from Johnson and convert that into the display case. Actually finish it off, put it in some, make it so it's freestanding and put it in, that we could use, just, glass or, display shelves.
I'm already getting text about that.
But see,
I knew I was gonna do that, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so, the goal was to use that center court
so we're
section.
not putting it back in the circle.
It won't match.
You couldn't do
Because
that.
you put it-
We know you couldn't do that,
Is
but
it
it was a plan of putting it on the wall somewhere.
Yeah. But I figure if we can take those centerpieces and use those to actually do as a display, that we would have in IJ and at Laurel Hill. But we need,
We talking about 2 years down the road,
For Laurel Hill.
What are you talking about?
get this cabinet up, well, how much time we talking about?
for Laurel Hill, we need to get the center court.
Leon.
Leon got it,
Oh, man.
but I think he wanted to do something to make it shiny or something. You
My
know,
question is time frame.
time frame on what?
Getting the case in. for him.
Well, the case, I think we should just get that done now and then.
But you're not hearing this. He said they want to, their idea is to use the floor to be a part of the case, to have it.
Yeah, it's the back of the case.
I don't know
My
about that.
simple
He got a
question
pretty big piece of that, so
You two are saying, let's just build a case.
Time
and do something
frame,
separate.
what are we talking
that's what
about?
I'm doing. That's what I'm talking about.
They said, let's build a case separate, do something separate with the floor.
We'll hang the floor on the wall somewhere.
And we can order a trophy case.
I mean, that's what.
Let's we got everything done up, but let's put the trophy case in the
I know. I don't wanna sound like I don't appreciate calls from anybody, but I'm tired of talking about the triple case in Law Hill.
Yeah, let's go ahead and put it up there, what we talked about. That'd be solved.
But we can do something creative with the floor. like
And the
that.
floor we can get done whenever he does, he just wanted to make it look better, shiny, whatever. All right? Anything else?
Do we just?
I think we've already made a motion on it.
I think that's been done.
Okay.
We just gotta-
Yeah, when you said anything else, and I guess
I'm
you.
gonna asking that.
When you said, if we're gonna stop the Johnson projects, you know, I'm for that Johnson project 1,000%. I just know if there's a shooting, bullets hit the building while April workers are there, she's gonna have a problem getting to come back. That's what
I agree, but let's
And
put
so-
that on the agenda.
Okay, and I just want us to know that people will come over there for service, they'll come over there doing what they do, but she'll have turnover because of that. I mean, big turnover. If one get afraid and don't go, you probably won't have anybody going. I'm talking about social service, I ain't talking about all the other stuff we're doing. So I just want that.
Yeah, but
You know that's
that's gonna breed the question of,
Cooperative extension.
it is,
What's the difference?
right, what's the difference of my kid playing in the gym if social services don't feel safe in the building? I mean, you know what I mean, but I hear that
You
question.
go over there to play ball for exercise, these old folk that supervise, what have you, they go there to earn a living, and they can earn a living
Yeah, one time
outside
we
of
talked about
getting
it,
shot at.
that's what I office with the sheriff's department, the police department, or somebody over there.
Yeah, well, I don't, we'll
throw
get
that
to
out
that.
there.
When we talk
It's
about,
two points.
yeah, that letter will be an item on the agenda for the next meeting, and we'll have time to sit down and talk about it, because I think there's some people coming from DSS on that, at that meeting too, so.
You want that to be a full item on the April regular meeting or the April work
I have it
session?
on the regular meeting, unless it's a long agenda, but I don't think it
That's
is.
not.
No.
I want to ask a question, and it ain't got nothing to do with this. But when we're talking about the tipping fees for the city, okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. Now, we get taxed for every meter in the county. Is that correct? For every meter, it's like what, $80 or something like that for dumping at this landfill for trash.
Oh, he's talking about.
Now,
the
I'll tell you where I'm going with that.
What is it, $84?
$84 or 80, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that's for every meter in the county, right? If you got a meter,
In the county.
that it charges, even the people in the city.
It charges it me, and I'm in the city.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So it charges everybody that's in the city too,
Yes.
okay? So is the county picking up, I mean, is the city picking up those people's garbage? And then having to,
But they don't, but I haul as much to the landfill sites that is, because they got so picky about what they won't pick up, so.
I know, but what I'm saying is the people in the city having to pay twice to dump their garbage? That's what I'm getting at. Are they having to pay twice?
Well,
That $84
is a
time
once
deal.
a year thing.
Yeah, I know that. I know that.
$27, I think it is, for household pickup in the city.
For your green can.
my green and my blue can.
Okay.
But I end up hauling off more to the county sites,
I
because
do
they won't pick up
Yeah.
certain stuff.
Okay.
But does the city then pay $84 per person?
Right, that's what that's what I'm asking,
Out
yeah.
of our money.
Yeah.
Or we pay, of that 27%. of the-
Because they still get to use sites
Right.
in the county.
Yeah.
Or whatever the,
And that 27 a month, most of that cost is the cost of collection.
Yeah.
Picking up those green and blue boxes.
Okay, okay. So
I think
that's,
it's $55 for the city, if you're in the city, the fee that we pay.
And I hate,
Right.
if I may, you didn't want to go back to something you said, the county residents pay that fire tax. Do the city residents not pay that at all?
Incorporated.
We pay
you
it,
have
we pay it in our
area
county tax,
incorporated.
right? We pay it in our county tax.
Yeah, it's part of the county tax, but if you own property inside the city of inside of Laurinburg, Gibson, or Wagram, it is not subject to fire tax.
okay, is that, the truck that he's talking about, is that the one down here on the south side of town?
There's, well, actually 5.
We have 2 trucks in each station.
I'm talking about the substation, so is that the one?
There's actually 2 in each station and 1 in the substation. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up.
So the trucks are actually based in the city, but they're air trucks?
Right, and the agreement for the.
I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this.
Here's the agreement that was originally made, the way those fire stations were built. So we provide the city with 4 fire trucks, 2 at the north station, 2 at the south station, a pumper and a tanker. Pumper and a tanker. Now we include that one down on 4 out. But call comes in, it's on the north side of the railroad track. It's in the county, the north station leaves with the county truck and goes to the fire, and then you can take the tanker, somebody will pick it up if they need it. Reverse that process if it's on the south side of the railroad track. But what's happening is the city doesn't have an in-service fire truck other than the ladder truck. They don't have a pump. And for whatever reason, they've let it go, but, they don't need it. But,
Well, Robert's on the fire commission.
I'm trying to pull up the number, because I think Robert sent it to me.
Yeah, I don't have that before me. I did the research and sent it out by an email, but I don't have it before me with all that, with the actual numbers. That's been a couple of years ago when I did that, so.
It was, the last number I saw, and I'm gonna make it up, but it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 95 to 97% of the in the city limit Laurinburg fire calls were responded to with one of the county trucks, or both of the county trucks. 97%.
But that's just.
And it's gonna happen sometimes.
That's the city employees that's using the truck. So.
You take the truck, and
use it.
they're authorized to do that.
And they're taking the truck from the city stations to a city. fire.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
It's not, you're not coming from Gibson to do that.
No, but as you see them riding around town, that's the ones you see riding around town. And my concern about it is we're gonna wear them out before the turnover for the fire commission, has a certain rotation schedule on these trucks. And if the county is gonna provide the city with their fire protection equipment, then by God, somebody's gotta pay for it.
The people whose homes are being serviced by those fire calls should be contributed to the
Correct.
purchases as we.
Correct.
I don't disagree with that.
Basically, every fire in Scotland County is responded to by a Scotland County fire truck, or 2.
But those in the city limits don't pay the fire tax.
Correct.
Right.
If you are inside of a municipality, Laurinburg, Gibson, Wagram, you do not pay the fire tax.
Wow.
But, that discussion widens out to Wagram and Gibson. You just have a much smaller number of those, very small number of in the city limit of Wagram and Gibson fires that the county trucks are used for. And I don't have a problem with
So
the city
people in
using-
Laurel Hill don't pay a fire tax.
Yes, they do.
They did go-
But Gibson, Wagram,
It's just Gibson and Wayne.
Just Gibson and Wayne and Laurel.
in Laurinburg and part of Maxton.
Yeah.
And, I don't have a problem with the city, because they do cover our.
What about East Laurinburg?
That's part of.
I mean, those are our official.
Now they.
Not anymore.
Yeah, now that they've heard it. But, I mean, I don't have a problem with this arrangement and how it works. It's great, I think. I'm worried that we're gonna wear out those trucks that we're using, and I'll name them, 61 and 11 are the ones that are used. And that's the ones you see riding around town. You see parked in somebody's house while they're going to eat lunch, or you see it at McDonald's or whatever, and they ride
Mr. Chair,
around.
can we make this an agenda
And
item?
then I'll take that as your motion to adjourn.
And get the info, have Robert get the information.
Yeah, if you can get a run number for the last year on county equipment used. with
Through the city law platform.
And I'll second your motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's go home.
Who made the motion to adjourn?
I do.
Does anybody want to?
We were.
I know you want to spend another 3 hours.
I didn't see that on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda, this is.
Huh?